Special Operations, Covert Ops, Espionage, The Team House, with your hosts, Jack Murphy and David Park.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 365 of The Team House. I'm Jack, here with Dave, and our guest on today's show. We're very happy to have Major General retired Dave Grange on the show. General Grange served in Vietnam, served in Special Forces and Ranger Battalion, commanded the Ranger Regiment, served as a squadron commander in Delta Force, and then later the deputy commander, deploying to Desert Storm. I mean, a very extensive career, finished his time commanding 1st Infantry Division, and we're going to get into all of this. But first, Dave, thank you for joining us on the show today.
Well, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
So to kick it off, I'd like to ask you about, sort of your upbringing, your origins. I know you have an interesting family background that goes back into the Army. If you could tell us a little bit about how you grew up and how that kind of took you towards military service yourself.
Sure. So, yeah, the family kind of runs with OD green blood, I was an Army brat almost right away. My father was a private in World War II as a paratrooper. In Korea as a paratrooper, and then infantryman, and then Vietnam with 101st and Special Forces advisor in that. So we moved around a lot, just like all Army families do, and I did a lot of hunting with him, fishing, moving around the woods, and which actually helped me out quite a bit even at that age, becoming a soldier. But he never put any pressure on me about, me going to the military, but I just kind of liked what we were doing. I mean, I'd be in my little Bergen or my little German rucksack in Bavaria, going up with his A-team, reconning the terrain that they were going to use as an insurgent force against conventional units in Germany at that time, with his A-team, which no one spoke English in the team except for himself. Everybody was from Eastern Europe or someplace. And it kind of just was a bug I got. I went to North Georgia College, which is a military college. Barely got in because my grades were terrible. But I went there, and it got a hook into me, and I finally did well, and commissioned as an infantry officer. And that's kind of how it started with my dad, and then North Georgia College.
And what year did you commission?
Well, I was supposed to commission in May of 70, and I actually got out early, December 1969. Ah. See, I went to North Georgia on academic probation because I was kind of a wild teenager, and they squared me away right away. And so I started going to additional summer schools, and actually did very well in the school and first in summer camp, and with all the colleges, and so so that's how I got to Vietnam, because I graduated early.
And when you got to Vietnam, you served with Lima Company, the reconstituted Ranger companies.
I started out as a grunt in the 506 Infantry Band of Brother unit, like the same platoon that Winters, Lieutenant
Wow.
Winters, and Band of Brothers commanded during World War II. They call it different. It wasn't an Echo Company, as you know now. It's ABCD through each battalion, but it was actually the same platoon. And so, and then I got wounded kind of bad. And when I went back, the Sergeant Major got me back into Vietnam. I was supposed to go to a VA hospital for 90 days or something, and he got me back in, and my father picked me up in a helicopter. He was there then. He was on his third tour, and I was on my first tour. As a lieutenant, he was a brigade commander. And he got me back in there. I painted my cast from my shoulder down to my wrist OD green, so I could move around in a jungle and that. But then I went to L Company. Once I got better, I went to L Company Rangers, as a LRRP.
Tell us a little bit about that. We've interviewed some of the LRRPs on this show in the past. I'd love to hear from your experience as a platoon leader or a company commander at that time.
Sure. Now, as a platoon leader, the guy I replaced, Lieutenant Sawtell, great guy. I shot in the head in the Ashaw Valley putting out a claymore, Ho Chi Minh Trail. And that's the platoon I took over, 2nd Platoon, Lima Company, 101st Airborne. I'll tell you that being an infantry guy, a grunt, first, and then going to Lima Company kind of shaped my whole career, how I thought. Probably more in the mistakes that were made a difference to me than how great we did. And it was a great outfit. Super guys, men with painted faces, as they called it then. And so that kind of shaped how I trained myself and self-discipline myself, but also what I instilled in those that I led. Was L Company Rangers, and we were deep and out at artillery range. You relied on Cobra gunships, or I think they call it Stinger and Spooky's End, or whatever, just like the AC-130 today. They're using I think 47s, but also using 123s, and then airstrikes, of course. And it was a great learning experience, very decentralized. We had a selection process, not as good as it is today, but it was a selection process none the least. And I still communicate with some of those guys. A lot of them are dead now. It set the base for me for rangering, probably even more than Ranger School. And tactics, techniques, and procedures, like movement, fish hooking back around the ambush shoes following you, how to put out claymores the right way, not the way you're tested really on EIB. And so, it was a wonderful experience. Got wounded there my second time with a 12-man hunter killer team, which we did periodically because we bumped into quite a large force. 7 medevaced, including myself, which we did ourselves. But yeah, it was a great experience, Jack. I loved it. I reminisce about it periodically still.
Could you tell us a little bit about that experience when you got wounded and CASVAC'd out?
We went in to find a way station / hospital in a pretty tough area we hadn't operated in for at all. And we did a false insertion. We came in on some UEs that extracted an infantry unit, laying down in a chopper a little bit, just trying to keep a lower profile. And we were able to do that because there were so many ships coming in to get the infantry company out right before dark. And that's how we got in. And then we moved as far as we could that night. And then, because of booby traps and everything, we RON'd, set up, and just to see if anybody followed us off the LZ. And I'm trying to remember exactly, a couple of days, and then we got to near where the objectives were, so we ran into the OPs of what I was told later, a battalion-sized force, and it was security elements that were protecting this way station for ammunition, other supplies, as well as taking care of the wounded. It wasn't as far west as the Ashaw Valley, but it was right on the edge there. And we got in a firefight, and they were shooting grenades, different things, RPGs, things going off, and we ended up with 7 injured, 2 killed, and 5 of us wounded. It was in a 1st Brigade Commander's AOR, Trying to think of his name, but he wounded in Korea. Tough guy, tough brigade commander. On radio with him the whole time. He helped us with air support, which we used a lot because we got caught in a saddle, and we kind of on the front of us, left and right, and so the main thing then was to evacuate the wounded because there's only 5 guys that remained, that were operational to fight. One interesting thing about operating as a lieutenant in Vietnam is that a lieutenant, and hopefully you were trained on fire support, just your initials, you can, without going to any higher headquarters than that, even as an advisor of a second tour or whatever, a lieutenant in the infantry, I could call in an airstrike, artillery. I didn't have to get approval from anybody. It was myself and my team sergeant or platoon sergeant, whatever. We did it. That's kind of how it was run then. And that saved our ass. But yeah, Huey came in, medevac Hueys, great, the signature helicopter, right, from the Vietnam War. Great helicopter. I flew them later, doing a little stunt as an additional skill identifier, flying helicopters for a while on 101st. But, they pull us out with a hoist. 2 guys at a time. One would sit on the little seat kind of thing that came down, and the other guy would be on the lap, and pull them up that way. If they were, the guy had to be in a basket, they'd do that, and they were periodically under fire, and that we kept that down to a minimum because of the airstrikes. And finally, after I was the last wounded guy out, then I put my team sergeant. Actually, I put a corporal in charge. Now I remember, Corporal Quigley, because they put in a rifle company to reinforce it and then to exploit what we had found. But our mission ended then because we had so many wounded and KIA.
And I take it that was sort of the end of that tour for you after being wounded?
No, I didn't leave country on that one. The first one I left country, I went to Guam, which is really a Navy place. Why I was the only Army guy there, I have no idea. But no, I stayed in 85th Evac right there in Fubai.
Wow.
And went back to my unit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that, you almost learned more from the mistakes than the successes. What were some of like the big bullet points that whether they were improved or sustains for your time with the LRRPs that you took away and took with you through the rest of your career?
Yeah, let's say a couple things. So one, let's talk about the environment first. I mean, you have to be one with the environment. Desert, jungle, mountains, Arctic, whatever it is. You cannot fight the terrain. You have to be with the terrain. You have, just like a hunter, you're stalking, deer hunting, whatever, duck hunting, whatever you're doing. You have to be a part of the terrain. The VC, the NVA, they were part of the terrain. They knew how to live in it, move in it, eat in it, relieve themselves in it, whatever the case may be. Monsoons, bugs, snake, whatever. They were comfortable in it. And in LRRPs, you learned how to do that. I mean, we could smell the enemy. Our acuteness on hearing and sight was phenomenal. Our noise discipline. You didn't have a poncho because if it rained, it reflected. You had a poncho liner, you had a half of a poncho liner. On your LRRP rations, you didn't tear open to make noise of cellophane, all the stuff they're wrapping. Before you went out, you carefully opened them up to the last piece that the food was in, and you put a piece of black tape on it. You didn't snap your rucksack pouches. You used 550 cord and a carved piece of stick and hooked it just like the NVA back rucksacks. Everything was quiet. and you move like an animal, like a lion would move, a tiger, a cougar, whatever. You were quiet, and that's why if somebody got sick, he coughed and said, that you didn't take him out on patrol. You couldn't do it. I mean, I remember where my team sergeant almost smothered a guy to death, keep holding his hand over his mouth. So you had to be part of the terrain so you could focus on killing the enemy, not worrying about whining about, oh, it's raining, I'm tired, the bugs are biting me, I'm slapping the mosquito. You can't do that. So the self-discipline involved in living in the environment to fight is extremely important for reconnaissance organizations.
Is that something that guys came with, or is it something that they were able to learn when they were there?
They had to learn it.
Yeah.
You didn't learn that back in the United States before you left.
Yeah.
You had to learn it there, and the young sergeants, corporals, E5s, and that they taught them all that. They taught me that, and it was easier for me and some of the other guys because they used to hunt a lot and stuff.
Right.
I used to always tell guys, a hunter makes a good soldier better. A soldier makes a good hunter better. It's very true. So that's one thing, being a part of the environment. We'll talk about it later maybe, but I learned that in the last 3 years in Ukraine off and on with my guys doing the training we're doing already by the front lines. What they had to do to live with the terrain and what's going on. The discipline of stuff that you forget in special operations, the more elite you get. So, and as an example, you get to the Rangers make a good infantryman better as an example. You go to Special Forces, you go to Delta Force, whatever the case may be, you get a little cocky. You've gone through all these different hoops and you made the cut. It's like a pyramid. But if you forget where you come from, the basic infantry tasks, you screw up. So most of the guys I've seen wounded or killed in my career was not the sexy stuff. It was basic screw-ups, noise and light discipline, dispersion, tie downs on equipment. Knowing just like long-range patrol and SAS in North Africa. Patty Main was quoted as saying, when I was in a Jeep, kitted out to go behind German lines, my guys had to know when they reached back on their left side, there was a torch, meaning a flashlight. I reached back on my right side, there was a machine gun belt for my Victor's machine gun. I knew everything was there. The discipline, the small stuff that in a firefight or at nighttime in the confusion, when people are scared, get screwed up. And so it reinforced in the LRRPs because, there may be 6 guys, right? Sometimes 5, usually 6, sometimes a hunter killer team of 12, which really meant you got a few more guys in an M60 machine gun with you. You have to depend on the discipline in that. You remember Dick Meadows.
Mm-hmm.
I knew Dick Meadows very well when I was a Ranger Company commander for Eagle Claw and Hard Rock Charlie, Savannah, First Bat. He was the advisor to Delta then. Later on, his son was my recon platoon leader in Korea in the 503rd. But he was really good at this. And you remember he was direct commission to Vietnam, DSC winner.
Mac v. SOG.
Yeah, I mean, the guy had his shit together. And he was one of my mentors. And he loved the Rangers. He served down in the Florida camp under Beckwith. That's how Beckwith knew him when he picked him for Sante and all that stuff. Or not Beckwith, Bill Simons and that. So he was really hard on that. And he knew how to instill that in that, so I tried to copy him as best I could. And so that attention to detail when you're in a fight, you don't have time to try to correct those things. They have to be automatic. They can't be, oh shit, did I do this? Did I do that? Whatever. You have to focus on the enemy and where your guys are, those kind of things. And so that's kind of a second point I think I'd bring up. And let me just add one more on the LRRP thing. I really learned about the importance of intel. One, we had to find intel, but the intel, even for our patrols, how important it is, because you rely on those guys that provide that intel to stay alive and to accomplish your mission. And also, we had the responsibility to gather intel ourselves. And you're not going to gather intel if you're a bunch of goofballs running around the jungle out there and not knowing what you're doing.
Hey guys, our show is sponsored by GhostBed. Check them out, please. They make awesome mattresses, awesome pillows, awesome bedding. GhostBed provides high quality and super comfortable award-winning mattresses crafted in the US and Canada. Did you know that 60% of US adults report being too hot when they're trying to sleep? That's me. I'm a sweaty little baby. That's why we designed all of our products with cooling features so you stay comfortable and asleep all night long. Pair any of our mattresses with GhostBed's award-winning adjustable base and get the ultimate sleep experience. GhostBed rules the family-owned business, 60,000 plus 5-star reviews. They have sleep experts on staff with 20 plus years of experience. So if you have any questions, you can hit them up and ask them, maybe what kind of mattresses work for you. 20 plus year warranty. That's 2 times the industry standard. Free shipping and returns on mattresses. Most of the products ship out within 24 hours. They have in-house customer support and sleep experts chilling in Plantation, Florida. It rules. It's the best. They give you 101 nights risk-free to make sure that these beds are right for you. If you don't like it after 101 nights, you can send it back, full refund. When you purchase a GhostBed mattress, your comfort guaranteed. I'm reading it right now, and it's capital letters, guaranteed. Okay? They do the right thing, and they're a great company. If you're not sure which GhostBed's right for you, like I said before, you could take their mattress quiz online, or you can give a call to one of their sleep experts, and they'll help you with exactly what you possibly could need, what works for you and what doesn't. And the best news about this is, Team House listeners and viewers, you get an extra 10% off site-wide for a limited time. You just go to ghostbed.com/house and use the code HOUSE at checkout. One more time, that's ghostbed.com/house with the code HOUSE, HOUSE, at checkout for an extra 10% off site-wide. I want to thank GhostBed for their continued support. I want to thank all the fans that listen and watch for their continued support. Without you guys, we are nothing. So thank you for supporting the show, and thank you for supporting the companies that help support the show. ghostbed.com/house for 10% off. Made in the US, made in Canada. Shout out to our brothers in Canada. They rock. Check them out. I love GhostBed. Thanks, guys.
I'm going to add one more. That's the training thing. Everything's about training. Training's a continuous process. And it can never, ever, ever stop. And I carried that all the way through division command. Train, train, train. With whatever you got, you train. And I got to where, in my mind, I was so convinced of this, the importance of training, that on the training requirements, I would take, let me say it this way, I would take a 9-man, a 12-man, whatever it is, squad with M1 Garand rifles that was heavily trained, that knew their stuff and training, then all the sexy equipment you can have, and I'd kick your ass because my guys are trained. Training is everything. Everything. And I carried it on through even the Ranger, and we'll talk about that later if you want, as a Ranger, the RCO, where every one of our battalions deployed live ammo, parachute in. Not everybody got a chance to parachute in with the live ammo, but how many people have done that? Unless it's in combat, which it should be the first time you do it. it's like twice the weight. It really sucks. It's tough. And so it's all about training. And so I lived or died on training. That's why Mangadai, the officers being trained, I want to talk about that a little bit if we get a chance tonight, why that's so important. So I think those are some that come to mind right away, Jack.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that with us. And you mentioned you did a second tour as an advisor.
I did. So first tour was infantry rifle platoon leader. Second tour is alert platoon leader. Where I was in a hospital part of the time. That kind of disrupted it somewhat. Second tour, 81st Airborne Ranger Group, advisor, which is attached, or OPCON, to the Vietnamese Airborne Division. 81st Airborne Ranger Group was the old Project Delta that Charlie Beckwith commanded. And these were really good Vietnamese fighters. The only ones that compared to them was a group called the Hoc Bao. The Hoc Bao was the Black Panthers. That the Ranger, the LRRPs, would go on missions with them. One American lieutenant or platoon sergeant with a Hoc Bao platoon, and they would go in to the worst areas in Vietnam to destroy, kill, whatever they could find. They only wore LCE. There was no rucksacks, nothing. Just they went in, and then after they killed everything, they came out. And I had the opportunity to go on 2 missions with them. They were pretty fanatical, and the reason being is every member of the Hoc Bao, a family member had been killed by the VC of the NVA. That's how they got in the unit, because they wanted people that were vetted, that were sure, that were loyal to the South Vietnamese military. And they were tough guys. Little fanatical, but really tough. And most of the targets were NVA, deep targets. Anyhow, as the advisor in the 81st Airborne Ranger Group, that was a great unit. And I was with them for the second offensive. Not as popular, obviously, or famous as Tet 68, but it was nonetheless pretty bad. And it was because we were drawn down. And this would have been 71/72, because I got over there in 70. Yeah. So 71, 72. And they again went kind of deep for the division up in I Corps, as where I operated, some in 2 Corps, Anlock, outside of Dak To, places like that. And we operated at company-sized units, and I was the advisor to the recon company of the 81st Airborne Battalion. So the guy that I worked with was really a tough guy. He was a weightlifting champion for middleweight, and a long time ago, before the war in South Vietnam, they called him the Tiger Man, and he was tough. He got killed later on, but he was really tough, and that was a great job. A lot of reconnaissance, blew up a couple bridges. It was just a enjoyable fight. Me and I had a platoon sergeant with me, or E7, and that was when they were overthrowing a lot of the fire bases, Vietnamese fire bases. Be one American advisor or 2, or a couple, and they all got rolled up fast. I mean, they were moving in regimental-sized units. We were in companies. And they had tanks, PT-76s. We didn't have artillery support, and very little. Remember, the Americans were drawn down, 72. It was like May, I think, of 72, something like that. And the only thing you had really was Sky Raiders now and then, which is a great fighting airplane prop. Good fighting airplane. I love them. I think SOCOM is actually working on a program to bring some of these back.
Yeah.
I like those as much as I like A-10s. I like them both a lot. They should belong to the Army. Anyway, so the a lot of fights. Actually, we got more fights than I did with 101st. And I remember one fight we went in with, then I got some recon company got shot up pretty bad. They reassigned us. I went out outside of Anlock with a rifle company, 110 guys, and we came back. There's only 19 left.
Wow.
And it was because I was by myself. I didn't have a sergeant, nothing. We had, again, they were operating like regiments. I mean, they would do a B-52 prep on an LZ where you walk on it, you come into it, and you're like knee deep in like powder from just the ground being just totally destroyed. And there'd still be guys coming out of the ground, bleeding out of their nose, ears, eyes, delirious, but they were, still running around. So that company got kind of decimated. And then I went to, I think another one, but I caught malaria on that one. I had to go in the hospital for a while in Saigon.
And was that kind of the tail end of your Vietnam experience?
Oh, the tail end. I just, after that tour, I just deployed back to the United States. My time was up. I didn't come back to the States and go back again. I just stayed the whole time for 2 tours.
And so at this point, there's sort of, I have to imagine, a bit of an inflection moment that, you went through all of this experience, 3 tours in Vietnam, basically. But at that time, post-Vietnam, it was not popular to be in the Army or to stay in the Army. But you chose to stay and pursued a special forces career. What was sort of that experience like for you after the war?
I got to admit, it was a little disappointing initially. Special forces was not what I remembered it as a kid, humping a rucksack in Germany with this A-team. There was no money. If you remember, they had the oil crisis. They always,
70s,
you hear the jokes about picking up pine cones at Smoke Bomb Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of was like that, And so I went to as many schools as I could because we didn't train very little. I was fortunate because I guess it was better than a lot of people experienced because I went to the Q course, which is much better now than it was then, by the way. I was disappointed in it then. But I went to Halo School, went to Halo Jump Master School. Then later on, I was in 5th group there. Went to, they assigned me to assigned me to a scuba team. I went to scuba school. So I got some schools in, and it was actually great because it was training. I mean, we didn't train a whole lot because there was no money to train. It was disappointing for me initially, and it got better. We got a mission to go to Iran. And going to Iran, it was with an A-team, trained with the Iranian Special Forces. They have to understand, at those days, the Shah ran the country. Very, very, he did some bad things, we found out later, but very close to American presidents. And, remember, it was all about their support, just like Turkey and that line there because of the Soviet Union. But the experience there helped me later because not only did we train with them, jumped in with them, did a big exercise in the desert outside of Isfahan or someplace. But one of the missions was to link up with the Kurds. And the Kurds were on the border of Iraq and Iran. And our job was to have them support Iran, not Iraq, because Iraq was in the Soviet sphere. It changed later for me. It was the opposite. At that time, we were supporting the Iranians. And and that was a great exercise. and they were wild guys. That's where I met the Kurds the first time, which paid off later during the ISIS invasion. I, as a civilian, went over there to help the
Oh, wow.
Kurds against ISIS, and that paid off because I told them the stories, and we had talked around, fires at night and stuff, drinking tea, and it helped me out. But that was an exciting trip, and I really enjoyed that. Understanding a little bit more of the geopolitics, even though I think I was still a lieutenant. Um, uh, yeah, but so that's how I got into the special forces part. We did a few exercises, but it wasn't like they do today. Today, the units do a lot more.
And then the other interesting thing here is that you made the jump to Ranger Battalion, and this was like a period of time in the Army where officers and senior NCOs, it seems like they could kind of cycle through Special Forces and Ranger Battalion in a way that you really wouldn't see today.
Correct. So remember, there was no branch. There wasn't an
Right.
18 branch for officers. It was an additional skill identifier.
Right.
So I didn't go right to the Rangers. I went to the 101st. No, I went to flight school.
Tell us how that happened.
That was an interesting. Yeah. Well, I was bored a little bit, to be honest with you. Someone came around and said, if you want to go to flight school, a buddy of mine, he wanted to go. He said, if we don't go now, Dave, we're not going to be able to go because we're going to be too old. They want lieutenants, warrant officers. They don't want captains. And so I said, what the hell, I'll do it. My father, he was still in the Army. He said, what the hell are you going to flight school for? What do you want to do that? I don't know. I just want to try it out. So I did go to flight school. Went down to Rucker, learned how to fly Hueys, went to Cobra Transition, knew how to fly Cobras. And I got stationed up in Campbell, flying helicopters in the 158th Aviation. And remember that was also an additional skill identifier, which is kind of dangerous as a pilot. The warrant officers, they knew that, right? So they'd have to kind of watch it kind of close. I just stayed there 2 years, only did about 550 hours, something like that. But I enjoyed the flying, don't get me wrong. In those days, it was all nap of the earth. If you didn't come back with leaves in your skids, you're a wimp, that kind of stuff. And it was a great experience for me. But where it really helped me out, I transitioned back to the infantry to command an infantry company. And it helped me out coordinating with aviation. Remember,
Yep.
The 1st Airborne Division Air Assault. You had to know helicopter operations, air mobile operation. You had to know them. So being a pilot and then going back to the infantry, it helped me understand. And we trained our ass off. And when a guy would tell me, you can't take this many guys, you got to have the doors closed, not open, whatever, I'd say, bullshit. I know you can do this. Do it. And we really were good in that. And so I enjoyed being a rifle company commander in the 1st and 2nd and 503rd there in Campbell. And I went to the advanced course. And from the advanced course, infantry advanced course, I was selected to go to the 1st Ranger Battalion.
So that was something the Army decided you needed to go do now.
No, they didn't decide. I never let the Army decide where I went until I got higher ranks. Then you don't have a choice. Because they'll send you where you don't want to go.
I know.
Right? And you're supposed to salute and do it. Most times, I didn't want to go to a leg unit. I didn't want to go, but certain things I wanted to do. And having been in the Rangers in Vietnam, I wanted to go back to the Rangers.
And the Ranger battalions were like kind of brand new at that time.
Well, 1st Bat, it was the only battalion.
Yeah.
There was no 2nd or 3rd. There was no regimental headquarters. So Joe Stringham hired me. And great guy, great battalion commander. He's only about that tall. but he's the fastest road marcher on earth. And tough guy. And yeah, so he hired me as a adjutant, which I didn't know anything about. So I never had a staff job. Remember, I was platoon leader or detachment commander or platoon commander. Now, the whole time in the Army, I never had a staff position. So I was very ignorant of that. I didn't realize how stupid that was to as a division commander, but I enjoyed the hell out of it, and I got a lot of ground time. And so then I took over Hard Rock Charlie. Now, it didn't happen right away because I started the rugby team at the Rangers to play civilian against civilian teams in the Southeast on off-duty time. I broke my leg, and so they wouldn't let me take the command. But I ended up getting it later because the guy got relieved and I got hired. I don't know if you know Doc Donovan.
Yeah, we all know of him,
Yeah.
if nothing else.
Yeah.
I mean, great medic. He was an E6 at the time, not a PA. But he was a good friend of mine, very good friend of mine when I was a company commander there. And I remember I was the S3 Air because I had a broken leg and I went and got an operation, get shrapnel taken out of my elbow at the same time. Got it all, trying to get it all done as fast as possible. And they were out at 29 Palms training in the desert, the company that I was supposed to take. And someone called back and said, we need 200 two-quart canteens. Can someone bring them out? So I volunteered to go out there, even though I was the S3 Air. Limping through the LA airport with a duffel bag and 200 collapsible canteens and on crutches, and not a damn civilian would help me. One end of the airport to the other. I remember that. And then flying into Palm Springs. And then a guy picked me up in a Jeep, took me out there, went to the CP in the desert, limping around. And I remember stringing, chewing out this company commander's ass, and the guy was arguing back to him, and he fired him on the spot. He was there with his XO dick pack. And who the hell's going to take that company? What are we going to do? He looked over at me, and I looked like a rag bag with 2 casts on, one on the arm and one on the leg. He goes, Grange, when are you going to get that shit off you? Tomorrow, sir. Roger that. All right, you're going to take Charlie Company. So that night, Doc Donovan cut off both casts.
Holy shit.
And yeah, I got the company. So that was just fortune, good luck. I was at the right place at the right time, kicking out a duffel bag full of canteens. And we got back, and I was still a little weak there, but I got better pretty quick. And I remember I had to jump into Panama about a month or two later, and I was still messed up, so I had to tape like the bottom ankle, with 100-mile-an-hour tape around a German, the German leather boots, the parachute boots.
The tanker boots.
They weren't tanker. I'd never be caught dead in a tanker boot. No, a jungle boot on one foot, and they were like German leather boots, but they were very thick and soft. Anyway, so then I jumped up in Panama and broke it again, and then I had to keep it quiet because I didn't want to get fired out of the company. A different battalion commander than Williford, and I didn't want to get fired out of the company, and so after the drop zone, Kundu drop zone, whatever the hell it is in Panama, we had a road march 12 miles to Fort Sherman. That sucked with the broken ankle. But I just kept my mouth shut. We went out in the jungle, just kept taped it every day and humping around. And then I'd cut the tape at night, and that hurt like hell to get the blood going. And you know how you do when you're trying to repair your shit yourself. Doc Donovan kind of nursed me. And but yeah, that's how that company. That's how I got the Hard Rock Charlie. You know what was great about it? We were able to train our asses off. We did a lot of urban training, mount training, and we were selected to be the Eagle Claw company for Desert One.
Mm-hmm. Tell us how that started to come about. How Charlie Company got brought into Eagle Claw, and you got wound up with Dick Meadows and Beckwith and all those guys.
Yeah, so that was a great experience. I mean, that shaped a lot of what I did. Obviously, after that, I went ahead and I was asked to go to selection before that, when I was the S1, and Stringham had me do a little special ops group. And that was down there at Key West. We did an operation down there near where the scuba school is. But anyhow, on Eagle Claw, I was at my dad's place. He was a division. He was the Fort Benning commander, and he. I was there for Thanksgiving, and I got a call, and they said, "Get my ass back to Hunter Army Airfield, Savannah." And they sent a little plane to Beechcraft or C-12 or something, I don't know, to Lawson Army Airfield, flew me back to Hunter. And the company had been selected to be the security company for the mission with Delta. And then that's when all the training started. I mean, that's all we did. We were locked down hard. There was very strict OPSEC. The equipment we would get would come from different units, which was pieces of crap that we had to fix. All the maintenance we had to do ourselves. That's where we really kind of used the OSS technique of get the whole company and find out what everybody's abilities were in civilian life. Mm-hmm. It didn't matter what their MOS was in the unit, or what they were trained to do. It was civilian life. Who was a farmer? Who was a mechanic? Who was whatever? And that's how we were able to fix Jeeps. Do on the airfield seizures, how we were able to hot start stuff like bulldozers and other pieces of equipment. Everything, we were able to innovate everything ourselves with what we had on hand. We had no augmentation. And so we developed how to do the gun Jeeps, how we were going to do the gun Jeeps on these kind of airfield seizures, how to do the motorcycles, how to do the night landings with the MC-130s, which they really could not do right. PVS-5 goggles just were new. We'd fly over a drop zone and throw out, in one door I'd throw out a bundle of chem lights, all broken, the light with tape around it. The other door, first started to throw out a bundle, and we'd mark the leading edge of a drop zone, a landing zone that way, and then on the next pass, the MC would land. That's how rudimentary. Or even at one time there was a parachute option, so we had to rehearse that. So we rehearsed all the way until April. That's a long time. Locked down all over the West, all those airfields and everything. And you can from the books and everything else about some of the problems on the rehearsals and working together and the jointness problems. And
that there's never a full mission profile rehearsal, right?
Right. But again, I'm a captain. I got kind of blinders on with what I had to do. Sure. I didn't really know all the big picture. I'll tell you one thing that was great though that really got my attention. One time we had to go up to the Pentagon periodically. So as I wasn't a young captain. I had equivalent of 4 company commands. With the detachment, rifle, ranger, air platoon, air mobile platoon, which is a captain. So I've been around a little bit, but I go up there with Beckwith, the Ranger Battalion commander, who at the time was Sherm Williford, and Bucky Burris. Good guy. I like him a lot. He's a wild man. I love him. I die for him. We almost died together a couple of times off duty. But anyway, so we go up there and we do these briefings. That's where we saw Marcinko, the SEAL in the hallway, and he was, he didn't have SEAL Team 6 yet.
Right.
So, he's a wild man. And he's kind of jealous of what the Delta guys are doing. It's kind of funny. I'm trying to take and understand where everybody kind of sits in this arena. So Beckwith takes us back to this hotel over Crystal City or wherever the hell it was. We go in there and he opens a briefcase up. I thought he was going to bring out this plan, right, to talk to us. There's a bottle of Jack Daniels. He's got a 45 1911 half cocked and a map. That's all he had in his briefcase. And so he kind of briefs us up a little bit in his update because he had been over to the White House and a couple other places. It was funny as hell, but I thought, God damn, you know, it was kind of a new thing. But I love those guys. They really, I mean, there's a lot of stories about they did this and that, and they were crazy and wild. But I'll tell you what, they knew their shit. They knew how to. If it wasn't for those guys at the time, the units would not have been created. It's no doubt in my mind.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but when Eagle Claw actually happened, you guys didn't take a Ranger company over there. It was more like a couple squads, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, there's both. So
Okay.
So we had an 8-man team under one of my E6s and Little John, Sergeant Little John, and they were on the Desert One mission, go in with the aircraft and secure the road that they were. Desert One was near. They're the ones that at the law blew up the tanker truck and
Yep.
did a few things, right? Which they were told to do. I mean, they had their job was to stop whatever. They did it like just good Rangers always do. But I was in Wadikinya in a Russian airfield, old Russian airfield in Egypt with the rest of the Charlie Company and the battalion headquarters. And so we never took off. We're getting ready to load the planes, all ready to go. And they aborted. Because we were going to take Mansouriya Airfield, which was a bitch. That would have been a tough mission because right across the road, we had 100 and something guys. Biggest weapon we had was anti-tank was a law. Had 60 machine guns, a couple in each Jeep, motorcycle teams they had the laws and stuff, 2-man, 2 bikes, 2 guys, security perimeter. Across the road was an armored division. But, we would have air support and all that, but we didn't have much on the ground at all.
Yeah.
So that would have been, because they would have been, everybody would have known that they hit the place, right? They hit the embassy and they were extracted by the 53s back to the Mansouriya extraction airfield.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had the CSAR mission to pick up anything that went down. So we were thin. And you figure accountability of all the hostages and all the Delta guys. But that's where all this airfield seizure and all those things started. And that's why today, it was rudimentary compared to what they do today, but that's how it all started. Mm-hmm. But let me tell you a sad thing. When we found in Wadikinya, we were like sleeping in cots in these MiG bunkers. Big, they're large. I mean, I must have held several, I guess, at the time. And the mission was canceled. And I remember sitting in there. Almost every guy was crying because the mission was aborted. And I can remember to the day, and it's the worst sound. I can't stand it. The only sound I don't like, I hate worse than this sound. Well, thump of mortars, sniper round, those scare you too, right? But stripping ammo out of magazines into a steel pot to return home. You talk about a heartbreaking experience.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it was terrible, terrible. That and all the way back, flying back, we were all, okay, what are we going to do now? What are we going to try again? I even drew up a plan myself and took it to the battalion commander. Let's get this. Let's talk to these guys. Let's do something. Yeah, because everybody was all that. Keep in mind all that rehearsal, all that training, and then it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we were, cock strong, ready to kick ass, confident. Even though there was so outnumbered so much, we knew we could just do it. Anyhow. By the way, we just had a reunion at our training facility at my farm this May with a lot of the 40-something guys that were on that mission.
Wow.
It was great.
It's incredible talking to those guys and hearing all those experiences, because I mean that really is like the birth of modern special operations came out of Eagle Claw. Like the units that were created, the commands that were created, and everything sort of flowed out of that, I think.
You're right. And what happened is that it did start there because that's when they started JSOC. And then Grenada, we can talk about that later, but Grenada then kind of finished off a lot of the stuff that had not been done yet.
So calm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That and communications and yeah.
Yeah, so tell us the next thing. I mean, you went to the Special Air Service selection at one point, right?
Yeah, that was a great experience too. So Beckwith wanted me to go to selection, which I was honored that he would say, try this out, Grange, our selections our selections in the spring and the fall. And this was like December, he asked. And there wasn't a course at that time. So he said, no problem. Get your ass over to Sterling Lines in Hereford, Wales, in UK, and go to the SAS selection. So I said, hell yeah. So I went over, and they kind of screwed up on the dates because their selection, they start off with an NCO week to weed out a lot of NCOs early on, and because of the numbers, and it was kind of brutal. I just thought it was part of the course. So I was the only officer there for that, and no one really knew I was an officer. You don't wear any rank or anything. And I was a major. I just got promoted to major. That's when I left Charlie Company. And so I went through that. Then it started, and all the officers showed up with about 20 different kinds of berets and all this stuff from the guards and this and that. So I went through the course, and then they have, as you know, just like our course, there's an extra week for the officers. A lot of people don't know that. And it's patterned after OSS type stuff. And went through that and then stayed around for a little while, got badged, what they call it. You get your beret with a badge on it. You can go through the course and not get badged. I didn't know that at the time. But great training. I was in pretty good shape. I come back to the unit. I'm in the S3 shop as an assistant S3 for Bucky Burris. A couple of the NCOs go, hey, sir, great job. I understand you just finished SAS. That's how you got in the unit. You didn't go through our course. What do you mean? I mean, this is equivalent. Our course is patterned after their course. Well, whatever you think, sir. I said, F it. So I went ahead and told the deputy commander, said, I think it was Burris at the time, I got to go to the course. I can't take this shit. So I went to our course then. I went through our selection. Now, that sucked, but doing both. But later on, when somebody goes, oh, this one's harder than that one. No, they do this, they do that. I said, bullshit. Here's the real answer to that.
Could you expand on that a little bit, like for our viewers?
Yeah, what's the real answer?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're very similar, by the way. Terrain's different. Brecon Beacons in Wales. It's the only place that I've been in the world where swamps are on top of the mountain. And you're wet 5 minutes after you start, no matter what day it is. It just sucks. And it was in January, so it really sucked because it was snow and ice and rained every day, and it was terrible. But the maps, the British maps are immaculate. They're perfect. There's an orchard, a tree line, a dirt road, and it's there. It's exactly like it. The Roman roads, it's perfect. Lovely maps. And it's all about orienteering. It's not really time. It's not a time and distance type thing or pace count thing. So that is different than West Virginia, where there is a lot of changes in the terrain because of logging or building things, whatever the case may be. And the terrain is not as open, more forests and stuff. So you really got to understand when you're in a saddle or a finger off a ridge or, whatever. You got to really know your stuff on that. In the SAS, you come back to every night to the camp. So you get some hot chow and sleep in the barracks. You spend half the night driving back in a lorry, a truck, to get to the camp. And you get up early as hell to get back out to the training sites. But it's still nice to be able to dry your shit out in a heating room, in these special rooms that dry your stuff like in 30 minutes. Where in our course, and I don't want to get too many details because some of the stuff they don't put out, but you sleep out there, you camp out. You're taking care of yourself in your own little tent, and you don't go in. But other than that, they're pretty much the same. The officer week's kind of the same. We don't have a prior NCO week. They all start together. I think they pass more people than we do, at least then. My class, he had 7 pass out of 100.
Wow.
Some classes, they had 1 or 0. Some they would have 20. You meet the standard or you don't. It's pretty simple, really. Just you do it or you don't do it. And I nowadays with GPS and everything, I mean, guys really have to get their head on right to go to it because units don't do that.
Map and compass.
So much. Now they brought it back, but I mean, it kind of you get pretty good at that stuff.
So you graduate from both selection courses, and now you are out of the S3 shop, I take it, and they give you a job, or I shouldn't say a job, but a command.
Yeah, B Squadron.
Mm-hmm. So what was that like landing in B Squadron?
Oh, it was wonderful. Great guys. We did some reorganization when I was there. That was, I don't want to go into, but it was that some of the sergeant majors wanted to do, and I wanted to do it as well, obviously. And we did Grenada. Funny thing about Grenada, I mean, when it was getting ready to start, I wasn't there. We were going to do a training operation in New Zealand. En route to New Zealand, I took a week's leave early and did the Ironman competition in Hawaii. And my first Ironman. And near the end, halfway through the marathon, the last event, my father was out there with my mother. They were my support team. They took some vacation in Hawaii, and so they were my support team for the race. And my father met me at one of the water stops, and he said, your commander called and said, get your ass back to Bragg now. I said, shit, I'm almost done with this thing. Ask him if I can just get another 2 hours, and then I'll get on the first flight out of here. So he called him, and he said, roger that. Run faster and get back here. So I did that, finished, got on a plane, got off the Big Island, got into Oahu, and flew to San Francisco and whatever. They picked me up, I think, in Atlanta on a little plane and took me back to Bragg. And again, I can't go into all the details, but we went to Grenada. So I called that my 4th event of the Ironman.
Well, what can you tell us about kind of like getting activated and getting spun up for an invasion of this island in the Caribbean?
Yeah, so a lot of that's out for people to know now, so I can go into some of it. So my deputies had already, XO had already done a lot of the work, sergeant majors, most of the stuff was all done. I just got briefed up and kind of did a review of the op order, and then we left. Landed at Barbados, Well, first of all, getting in a brig was a pain in the ass because of loading ammunition and helicopters on the same planes. It was a little bit of turmoil there. We got out of there anyway and landed at Barbados, and then they wouldn't let us take the shit off the planes. And so remember, we were supposed to go in at night.
Mhm.
Daylight's coming up. So the guys, the higher than level than me, were arguing about getting in and out of there to get on there. And so we went in at daylight. We flew over the Marines that were doing their landing craft. I remember seeing a Marine landing craft in the Caribbean there. We're flying over as we're flying in to the area. Some people are out of Hudson at a pointing AKs at us like they're going to shoot. Some aren't. You know, the guys are going, what are we supposed to do? The rules of engagement were not very clear. They changed where we're going in. We ended up supposed to go into Frederick. We go in and we get shot all to hell. And do a go around, come back around, get shot all to hell again because we can't land.
This was the prison where Jerry Boykin got injured.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
He was with the battalion commander or the Delta commander. As a 3. He was a 3 then. And A Squadron, their mission, the other place, they got aborted. Fort, can't think of the name right now. You may have it in your notes. That got aborted. So they didn't go there. We were the only squadron that got in. And then we landed. We had one bird go down. And then the other landed at Salinas Airfield on the end. So we're regrouping. We had like 17 guys wounded, some like Jerry Boykin. They went on to landing some of the LPHs or whatever out there, Navy ships landed there. And then they joined us back in Salinas. The one aircraft that went down, pilots got killed, burned up. All our guys got off. But out of 42 assaulters we had, I think, whatever, we had 17 wounded. So that's a lot of wounded for that size force. And I can remember at the end of the runway, the Rangers are jumping in now. 500 feet, whatever. They're jumping in, and they're landing some of them in between the Black Hawk rotors. They're trying to tell them, steer away. And luckily, no one got hit by a rotor blade being shut down. But that's how tight that was. And then we were going to have another mission, hopefully, to go in and do some stuff. Because, again, here we go. We wanted to complete the mission, but we weren't allowed to do anything else. So we took care of our wounded, linked up with the Rangers. Some of the guys that were hurt worse, stayed on the ships, obviously, with the Navy care, because they had the advanced next level of care. We did not. And we ended up doing a lot of calls for air support for the SEALs, because I think, as I recall, they only had MX radios at the time on the mission, because they fast rode it into the governor's mansion.
Yep.
And there was a radio problem that several different units had talking to each other. That's why I was saying earlier that once JSOC was set up, they had not matured to the level where the jointness of communications and all the different functional areas were tied in tightly like they are today. So that was another good learning experience. I mean, the mission pretty much was accomplished. We didn't get to do Frederick, but I mean, for the overall task force down in Grenada, I mean, the mission was accomplished. I wish we could have been able to do better. I'll tell you this, though, having been a pilot, I should say an Army aviator, if we would have been in Huey's, every bird would have went down. I think one of the guys was counting, one of the crew chiefs or someone that on the birds that were on the Salinas airstrip, none of them, because they all assembled there except for the one that caught on fire, had less than like 40 holes in it.
Wow.
If you didn't have the leak-proof bladders, fuel bladders and that, self-sealing, things like that, it would have been really bad. I don't know why more people didn't get hit. There was a lot of fire against. Luckily, there was no RPGs that I recall, like Mogadishu. There was no air defense type weaponry. There was no, as I recall, 51 cals, stuff like that. It was almost all AK type fire. There may have been some medium machine gun. I don't remember.
But I mean, 17 out of 42 operators, that's a mass casualty situation for sure.
It is. They weren't all severely wounded though.
Yeah.
But still, that's a lot of wounds.
Yeah.
I know, because we had the Purple Heart ceremony, and
And so what was it like winding down that operation and returning back home?
I felt a little bit like I did on Eagle Claw, because they wanted to get us out of there and get us back to Bragg. We had no follow-on mission. Remember the SEALs had that. They hit the radio station. They hit the governor's mansion. They had that one recon team lost out at sea. I'm sure they felt kind of the same way. They had some tough fights.
Mm.
I knew the guys very well. Gromley was I think is his name, SEAL Team 6 commander. I did some training up at Dam Neck with them on fast ropes and, on the ships. We did some good exchange programs. We knew the guys pretty well. But I know we got in a C-1, I think it was a 41 that landed then, because we had the whole Salinas airfield was secured. We flew back to Bragg. I remember sitting by Sergeant Major Mark Gentry. I just passed out then because I had slept since the beginning of the Ironman.
That's unreal.
Yeah, it was. But again, good lessons learned. More, I think, at the higher level because, like I said, of the jointness, requirements.
Is the Goldwater-Nichols Act came after that, right?
Well, let's see. When that was, I'm trying to think of the year. They get Program 11 on the books. I don't recall the year, but it may have been then. I don't remember.
And so at the end of this, I mean, is this pretty much the end of your time as a squadron commander and they're looking for you to go back to the conventional army?
We got spun up on different things. I did, not all these have been released, but I think TWA 847 hijacking Beirut, I did that. A few others.
Was that the one where you guys surrounded the aircraft?
Are you sure that's not Sigonelli in Sicily?
I might be thinking of that one.
Where they had on the Keel Lara, whatever the ship was.
That was the ship, yeah.
Yeah. No, this was, they hijacked it in Greece.
Okay.
They killed the SEAL, remember, on an airplane in Algeria, I think it was, and then they flew to Cyprus. We chased them, then they flew into Beirut. TWA 847. There's pictures of the pilot, the pilots hanging out the window, Hezbollah all over the place. That's when, Beirut was really bad. Hezbollah, and Amal, and, had a green line, all that stuff.
Did you guys get, or did you feel that you got pretty close to being launched to do the aircraft assault?
Oh, yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, good training up, just on the go training. Just rehearsals. Yeah, it was good. But I don't know if that's been released yet. So,
how was that situation ultimately resolved?
Reagan. No, wait a minute. Yeah, I don't recall. I think it was because you know what they did? They learned from Iran. Where remember they dispersed all the
moved them around.
Iran?
Yeah.
So that they learned from that, and they had people hidden all over. When they took the passengers, they had people hidden all over the place. So the only people on the plane were the pilots and the flight attendants.
Mm-hmm.
My point was, who cares? Let's get them.
Yeah.
They were worried about there be retribution, though, of killing, the others, wherever they were. We did a lot of, Beirut was a tough area to work in for a long time for a lot of units.
And you guys were sending people there quite often back in those days looking for hostages, not just them, but others, right?
Yeah, I've had guys wounded and killed there.
Wow.
But Special Forces did a lot of work there. I mean, they did a lot of work on the north side of the city with the Christians.
Yeah, they started doing the MTTs in like 82, I think.
Yeah, 82, 3, all that time when you had the bombing, at the Marine barracks, and you had the Grenada, all that happened kind of at the same time. But
I'd love to ask you, as we're talking about all this, sort of your reflections about that period and that era of counterterrorism, because I think that the unit was really kind of like writing the book on counterterrorism. Through no fault of your own, nobody at that time really knew how to do counterterrorism, and the things that existed during the war on terror simply had not been developed yet. I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about that development a bit.
yeah, so the beauty about having an organization like Delta or SEAL Team 6 or that, I mean, there's things you got to be careful of, because you can get this cocky attitude, and you know what I'm saying? You got to, like I told you earlier, you got to really watch the discipline.
Mm-hmm.
But you were allowed to, your guys would say, hey, sir, we can't do this. All right. And I'd go get the resources and have the guys figure out how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Could it be explosives? Could be, breaching. It could be sniper day-night scopes. It could be body armor. It could be do rope work, water work, air insertion, whatever. You were able to get the resources and figure it out. And because you had guys that had a lot of experience, I think when I was in, the average age was like 35 years old. That's old for a unit. And you were able to figure out how to solve these problems. It was wonderful. But, eventually there's always new things come out, just like the drones now, right?
Right.
But there's only so many ways to get in an airplane. There's only so many,
Yeah.
I don't want to go any further than that, but I'm just saying you got some limitations no matter how much stuff you solve. But anyhow, that was what was so wonderful about it, is because all ranks were involved in figuring out how to solve problems. And whether it be airfield seizures, extractions, or how to reach different kind of targets, working with different agencies. As a group, all those were great experiences. And I mean, we really have some people that know their stuff and how to figure this out. I mean, it's you're just so proud to be in these kind of units.
Where they're literally writing the book. It's pretty cool.
No, it really is. I mean, they still are. I don't want to take away from the newer generations that are doing that, but I'm just saying there was so much to do. I mean, you think about it, we had blue light with SF and a couple other units kind of had an extremist type requirements around the world, but not dedicated forces that were just so specialized in this. And our allies, just like the SAS, they did.
Are there any other alerts or events that you want to get into before we move on to the next part of your career?
You mean from that time?
Yeah.
No, I think that's
Okay.
fine.
So the next stop for you was Korea, second ID?
Yeah, I left the unit to take a battalion in Korea, infantry battalion on the DMZ. Yeah.
And what was that like, being a battalion commander in Korea in the mid 1980s?
It was wonderful. because everything is training there as well. There is no support cycle. And they have to let you train your people because the troops are only there for 1 year. So, it takes a while to do unit training. People don't come to a unit in Korea with enough capability to perform properly in combat.
Mhm.
So you don't have, post support. You don't do, you get a couple of details, but basically you train constantly. So I loved it. And as a battalion commander and some of the other like majors and above, you stay there. They want you to stay like 2 years. They don't want you just to stay 1 year. So really, your leadership, same with the sergeant majors, leadership is pretty well trained up. But that's where I started Mangadai because I wanted to. It had such an impression on me about how you train a special unit because of my background. But more importantly, how do you train your young officers to perform to your expectations or those of your troops in such a short period of time? They're given responsibility not only signed for all the equipment, but to lead these GIs in combat if called upon. So I took that very seriously. So I said, I'm going to do something special for the officers. Here's another reason. You get a second lieutenant in a unit in Korea, and who's his ranger buddy? It's really his platoon sergeant. Here's a 16, 17-year rucksack carrying NCO. And so that NCO and that officer has to connect. And that officer has very little time to gain any kind of respect from his troops in that short period of time. Very difficult for a lieutenant. So I knew I had to help the lieutenants. It was part of my responsibility because I was a direct report. And when you write an OER, officer report, or NCO, same thing. When do I see those guys perform? I go to the rifle range, I go to the motor pool, there may be an RTEP or some exercise, I see them here and there a little bit. But if I do a Mangadai, I do a 72 to 96 hour training cycle, and I'm with them the entire time. I know that guy inside and out.
Mhm.
So I'd set up an exercise where I take all the lieutenants and set up almost like a ranger school patrol, like a platoon, because you have a platoon of officers basically. And I'd go with them. I'd put my XO in charge of all the support. In other words, how to support the exercise. And I locked them down like isolation. So I'd give them missions. One, 3 squad leaders, plus a weapons squad leader, platoon sergeant, platoon leader. That's how I'd organize them. They would carry every piece of TO&E equipment that the battalion had, except vehicles. A dismounted tow, they'd backpack it. A 50 cal machine gun, they'd backpack it. An 81 mortar, they'd backpack it. And all their other stuff, machine guns, whatever, other stuff. And we go out in the mountains in Korea, and there's some good mountains over there. And we'd do 3 full days of training, live fire and blank fire. We would do helocast in a river up there in the DMZ. We'd do ambushes, we'd do patrols, fast roping from helicopters, all kinds of stuff. And I wouldn't feed anybody, and I wouldn't let anybody sleep. Now I'd go through the same thing, and the reason I had to do that, because I was the lane grader. The reason I had to do that is because I had to know where the red line was. Because think about it, it's a little bit of a safety thing as well. Because 72, 96 hours, that's a long time. And you're humping your ass off the whole time. No sleep, no chow. They'd have one chow break at the middle of the exercise, and I'd have the platoon sergeant call in a helicopter to bring the chow, and everybody's all fired up there in a perimeter. God, we're going to eat. And the rations for the platoon came in 5.56, large ammo cans. It all fit in that can. And every troop got a ball of rice, a kimchi leaf, and a sardine. And that was a chow for that 72, 96 hour period.
Wow.
It wasn't to be a hard ass. It was just to induce stress, hunger, lack of sleep, and the unknown, to develop these guys and see what kind of grit they had. Now, we came back from this training, and it was constant training with Op 4, or if it was live fire, obviously it was regular targets, whatever. I'd bring them into a small old mess hall, one of the old Korean War type mess halls. And I'd give them a steak dinner, and I had a keg of beer. Initially, they thought they were going in there to get another, Charlie Mike, continue the mission. I'd bring them in there, and after they ate, they had a couple beers and that, I'd sit them down and give everybody a blank sheet of paper. And I would say to them, I want you to do the following. And you have to understand, their minds are in a different mindset now. They've worked with these guys the whole time. They know everything about them because this was miserable. It's harder than Ranger School. It's harder than SF selection. It's very difficult, this training. I want you to write down, if you're the battalion commander, what you would do right now to make it a better battalion. Question 2, what are the 3 top resources you don't have to do your job right now? I want you to write down the 5 guys in this room that you would go into combat with. Now, in this situation, they're not going to necessarily say their buddy that they went to West Point with, or ROTC or OCS. They're not going to mention their buddy. They're going to mention the no kidding who they would go to combat with, because their mind is set on who can handle it, who has the, as Beckwith would say, who's the right cut of cloth. I would take that information, and it was only for me, and I could look at those guys and compare it to what I saw in a motor pool, the range, whatever, in regular training, and figure out who the studs were, who's dependable, who's not a bullshitter, who's reliable, all that stuff. It comes together for you. Now, when they left the mess hall, they were told you do not talk to any troop in the battalion about what you went through. You keep your mouth shut. Fully knowing that as soon as they get out of there, they're going to talk shit. But that's okay, because psychologically, I want the troops to know what their lieutenants went through.
Mm-hmm.
And the respect that they would have for those guys, those leaders, knowing that it was harder than anything we'd ask anybody in the battalion to do during their tour in Korea, made all the difference in the world. That's Mungadai.
I can see how, especially in a peacetime army where these lieutenants or captains are not getting combat patrols, they're not getting that kind of real life experience, that in 72 hours, this is a way for you very quickly to assess your guys, also do this sensing session with them to figure out who the guys are and how to make the unit better, but also to build that cohesion. That's kind of difficult to do in that environment.
You can imagine, this, team, like a team room, right? You get all these people together for a Friday night beer call or something, right? The camaraderie was through the roof.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They loved each other. They would die for each other. And they felt really good about themselves and what they accomplished. Now, when I was a regimental commander in the Rangers, I did the same thing for the captains. And here you already got guys at a pretty high level of fitness, experience, because you can't be a Ranger company commander unless you've been a conventional company commander first. That's how they do it, just like platoon leader. So you already got a pretty high-notch guy of experience. So I had to make it harder. And then for battalion commanders, I did it as a division commander, which was a little more difficult because of the little bit more variety of MOSs, combat, combat support, combat service support, battalion commanders. But you know what gets the American soldier, what's harder than anything? This is my, again, philosophy, is the unknown. Here's why I say that. Everybody's used to being the first sergeant formation and told what to do that day, this, blah, 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 all the way down the line. If you stand behind the formation, which I used to do all the time as a division commander, to listen to what was put out, I'd just be in PT gear, could tell in the dark who it was anyway. And it's amazing how they have to have that guidance. Where in the soft world, you don't have to do that, right? I mean, you get intent and it can be in a conventional unit, but normally it's not. I mean, I try to do that in the Big Red One. So there had to be a way to get these battalion commanders to think a different set of what to do and developing their people and getting them ready for the unknown of combat. See, everything's about training and everything's about preparation for combat. Nothing else really matters, because if someone dies, gets killed or hurt badly, and you go talk to their wife or their mom or whatever the case may be, you never forget that, right? And so your responsibility is to accomplish the mission and keep them alive. When the smoke clears, you want your guys to get back up. So it has to be hard. And it has to be continuous. And so that's why I had to do those things. It was my responsibility to do it. And I know a lot of guys are doing them now still.
And then after Korea, your battalion command, you went to for the first time Special Operations Command?
War College, back to Delta as a deputy commander.
Oh, okay. I got it out of order.
I tell you what, I had the best. When you're in the War College, I think, and I can't remember, right before graduation, everybody gets their orders. And what did you get? Where are you going? And I was so embarrassed about my orders because they were so good. I felt like dropping to my knees and praying to God. I mean, what happened here? I had orders to go to be the deputy commander of Delta, followed by the Ranger Regimental commander.
Wow.
I mean, what is there to complain about?
Right. Yeah.
It was wonderful. And so anyway, I was able to go back to Delta for a year, deputy commander. Luckily, that's when Desert Storm happened. I got to command Task Force Green.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was a combination, scud hunting. Mm-hmm. There was two missions, the scud hunting, and it was, cutting communication cable, underground cable from in Iraq, going west to east and east to west, and a couple other places, and getting rid of the Scuds because they didn't want Israel to come into the war.
Right, because Saddam was lobbing those into Israel to try to draw Israel into the conflict.
Right, to break up the Arab coalition,
right,
etc.
Right.
Exactly. So that was a good experience. I'm not sure all that's out yet, but we lost some guys. We accomplished some good missions. Now, SAS was there as well. I do want to say this one part, though. What helped me out so much with working with the SAS, who were our neighbors, they had everything from the Euphrates, whatever, to Jordan was ours. The largest part of Iraq. I mean, it wasn't as many enemy units, but it was the largest part. And they had the first 200, I think it was kilometers, from the border, and we had the deeper 200. So it was tough for us to get to the AOs, but that's where a lot of the stuff was. But I had such a good relationship with the SAS because of going through their selection and the exchange program that they call it cross briefs that our unit used to do with their unit a couple times a year on TTPs, that we just divided up the AO ourselves, they and the other colonel.
I talked to years ago, I think it's General Wells was the brigadier commander of the SAS at the time.
Well, SAS is, no, he would have been with the ground command, or whatever they call it, ground group command, who the SCS reported to. SCS is always commanded by a colonel. So Wells would have been one level up.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and which is a key position. Don't get me wrong. But we were at RR base and air base, and they were down at Al Juf. But think about that Task Force Green. What a love! I guess I can talk about a couple things. So we had two of our squadrons. We had agency support sprinkled here and there from different agencies. We had a Ranger Battalion minus. We had 3rd Battalion Task Force 160. And we had unlimited access to an A-10 squadron. It was a wonderful task force. That's where I really fell in love with the A-10s. To do that mission. And we were able to accomplish the mission. That was a good one. Yeah, we had a couple problems as the SCS did as well, but it was, again, a great deployment.
There was a pretty sizable firefight that one of the squadrons got into, wasn't there?
Yeah, Bargewells.
Yeah.
Yeah, good friend of mine, but rest in peace. But he, yeah.
And
I remember that night well when they getting them back. Yep.
yeah, any recollections from that you can share?
There's always controversy about do you extract somebody or not, right?
Sure.
And I don't want to get into the decision-making process on that, but it's a good example. You got to trust the guy on the ground. If he says, "So I need to be extracted," you got to believe him.
We had one of the SAS guys on the show a ways back, and he told the story about how, Bravo 20, we all know what happened to them, and they had to E&E. He said there's another team that went in, and the team sergeant on the ground saw that the terrain didn't support a reconnaissance mission. It was just flat in every direction. They weren't expecting that, and he made the call to abort the operation. And that was very controversial, he said, at the time, because there's a lot of pressure for these guys to go out on operations. And that was a very controversial thing. But in retrospect, he was the guy on the ground, and he absolutely made the right decision.
Yeah, and I can understand it. So take the higher commands position. It was very difficult to insert.
Mm-hmm.
It had to be at night. We didn't have the night vision capabilities that we had them, but not like we have today. You have to understand that. I mean, I just go and I thought about that because I remember in Vietnam bringing in helicopters at night, no GPS, no nods, or in the middle of a monsoon, and you would talk them into an LZ by voice on your PRC 77 radio by noise and a postage stamp LZ. Think about that amount. To pick up a wounded guy or drop supplies, ammo, whatever. So in this case, going in that deep for us, it was over 200 kilometers one way.
Yeah.
So you're endangering a crew on the assumption to some people, and you can understand why they would have an assumption that they really have to get out or not. I had to send a Black Hawk in to get a sick guy out. Didn't have to, but I made a decision to do that, and it crashed in a sand dune right outside the base, coming in and killed everybody. So I understand that decision-making process, how hard it is.
Mm-hmm.
When someone questions, do we evacuate this unit or not? Now, I heard the radio calls. I knew that they were in duress, but it's a tough decision. That's what you get, I guess, why you wear the rank. But I can see where the SCS, they ran into the same issue.
Mm-hmm.
But that team probably would have been rolled up in that kind of terrain. So it was a good
Yeah.
decision to get them out.
Yeah.
So after Desert Storm, you are already slated to go and be the regimental commander.
Correct.
What was that like being the RCO? Now, what year is this? Do we have 3 Ranger battalions by this time? Yes, we must.
Yeah, we have 3 Ranger battalions. Roger that. We don't have like the big support battalion they have now and the
Yeah,
dogs.
yeah.
Yeah, we don't have all that, which I think is great. We didn't have all those vehicles. But I was the 7th commander of the Ranger Regiment, which was quite an honor. Because number 1 was Darby, number 2 was Merrill, number 3 was Downing, number 4 is Stringham. Yeah, 6 was Kernan. I'm trying to think. Taylor was the other one, and then myself. Now they're up to 22 or 3, I think. But that was quite an honor, and again, a great experience. My how do you make Ranger training better? It's not easy, right? But it could be done, and we did. Here was how I had to start off with my mindset. Because we weren't at war, but we had to prepare for a lot of things. So I said to my officers, I said, look, what's our area of operation? And they're looking at me like, what a stupid question. But if you think about what the Ranger area of operation is, it's the globe.
Right.
It's the whole world. You don't break it down regionally. It's like Delta. So who runs those pieces around the world are the SINCs, or now the combatant commanders, then they changed the name of it, which it used to be SINCs at the time, right? Commander-in-Chief, whatever. Anyway, we didn't know them. They didn't know us that well. So in my mind, what we had to do is get a mindset of the SINCs to say, not do I need Rangers to do something in my war plan. The question is, how many Rangers do I need? I wanted them to want us in every theater. To do that, we had to be innovative to set up exercises everywhere we could. Every Marine Expeditionary Force also, 1st MEF, Atlantic, second MEF Atlantic, 1st MEF in West Coast, and then 3rd MEF in the Pacific. So Roosevelt Roads for 2nd MEF, 29 Palms for 1st MEF, Korea for 3rd MEF. Then we wanted UCOM to want us. We wanted SOUTHCOM to want us. We wanted CENTCOM to want us. So we set up exercises that we had no money for in all these places. And to do that, we had to go there and talk to them with me and the 3 and Sergeant Major and say, look, we want to get involved in this operation. Like when I went to UCOM, it was easy because I had Dick Potter.
Oh, yeah. Dick Potter's a great guy.
Great guy. Good friend. And so he convinced UCOM to do an exercise, and they paid for everything. I couldn't afford all those airplanes to parachute in a battalion here and there. So every battalion would go a couple times to a different place. Petawawa, Canada, but then they had their special force, special ops command up there, or special forces command. Korea, just all over, and to get our name out, or the word out, that the Rangers are here. We're part of your team. You need us for your fight. So that was the philosophy, and I had really good guys at the commands higher than me that supported the hell out of me. Like Steiner is a good example. All those guys helped. And so the Rangers Regiment command was a great command. I mean, it was lovely.
So at the time, it sounds like a lot of it was trying to sell the regiment to the big army, so to speak.
Yeah. The big army, but remember now, also these joint commands, and also the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
Marines loved us.
Really, that's surprising.
It is. But I had like 29 fire support guys from Lejeune that worked for us in the regiment.
Wow.
For support. Then you had Anglico. You had battleships.
Yeah.
And stuff. You had other stuff that when we parachuted in with live ammo from Savannah, Georgia, into Kuwait right after Desert Storm. It was a show of force mission with 7 C-141s. All our air support and live fire was battalion live fire. It's great. That all came from the Eisenhower and the F-18s. I mean, they were Marine pilots. They were Marines they did other support for us on it. Same in Korea. Did the same thing on a team spirit exercise.
Anything
It doesn't help to keep Rangers in the garage. I mean, you got to get them out.
Yeah, they're rambunctious a lot too, so you need to keep them busy. Were there any alerts or call-ups or any other memorable experiences from your time as the RCO?
Regrettably not. That broke my heart too, because I was hoping that we'd have a mission. Obviously, that was like some of the Afghan Iraq missions that we recently went through 20 years. We had some contingency ones, yes, but nothing happened.
Mm-hmm. And then the next stop for you was the deputy at SOCOM?
Yeah, a deputy commander, USASOC.
USASOC, okay.
Yeah, and that and there were a couple of things went on. I had to go down to Guantanamo Bay with the Marine Ready Company and SEAL blue or red team, or I can't remember which one it was, and AFSOC 53s to evacuate the embassy in Haiti. But that was called off at the last minute. We trained at Guantanamo Bay to get ready for that. And then it broke my heart also not to be able to help in Somalia, because I had just left the regiment when 3rd Bat went over. The company did 3rd Bat and Battalion Minus with Delta. And I remember Garrison, the JSOC commander, called me and said, come on over. He didn't know he was going to have to get forced out of there to leave, when they drew down. But USASOC was just to help me out a bit, just to learn about the USASOC requirements, because they do the admin log for the Rangers and the other, Delta, whatever, where JSOC is a combatant commander to do it. USASOC is the support, does all the support and training and everything. So it helped me understand that a lot better than I knew before.
And then there's maybe a bit of a homecoming going back to Germany, where you kind of started off patrolling the hills with your dad and his A-team.
Yeah, I went back to Bamberg, a little north of there, but I was assistant division commander for the 3rd Infantry Division, Rock of the Marne, and I realized that I had missed something along my career as a infantry guy, soft guy. I was probably soft more than infantry, but still my infantry a lot of the time. And all of a sudden, I'm in a heavy infantry division, and realized I had never been in an American tank. I've been in a Russian tank, like PT-76s in Vietnam, but I'd never been in a one of our own tanks, so I had a big learning curve. And luckily, the DISCOM commander helped me out quite a bit on the maintenance requirements and that. And I had a great division commander, General Holder, who ran Leavenworth later on and wrote 3.0, the manual on maneuver. On operations, 3.0 operations. And he taught me about the maneuver and all that. He was in Desert Storm as a CAV commander. A very good leader. And he taught me everything about heavy stuff that he could. So I started off as an ADC-S, which is support, and then I became the ADC-M for maneuver. So that was a great learning experience, and I got an appreciation for the heavy side a little bit better than I knew before, because I had missed all that in my past experience.
And then you took command of 1st Infantry Division.
I did. But back to the 3ID, one other thing, though, is I got to do a partnership for peace operation in Ukraine, working with Ukrainian prior, just recently, Soviet heavy unit. And so that helped me out what Holder did to train me. But also, now that I go back to Ukraine doing these medical operations, training medics and EOD guys, I understood the Ukrainians a lot better, so it helped me out quite a bit. But you're right. So then I came back to the Pentagon, my only tour there, DESOPS. Did that for a while. It was a good job being a Pentagon, even though I hated it. The Pentagon, it is. But it was operations, mobilization, and readiness. So you can't beat that for a job at a Pentagon. And learned a lot there as well, because I didn't know anything about the big Army in that regard. And the Big Red One, the history of that is phenomenal. And again, I didn't understand that until I prepped and went to that command. And what was very interesting about being a division commander there, I almost immediately went down to Bosnia, Herzegovina, as the third rotation that they had to run Task Force Eagle. And that was quite an experience. We had, I think, 27,000 soldiers, including I think it was 14 nations that were on our team. You had a French sector, you had a British, and you had U.S. And of course, we had the U.S. sector. And that was a tremendous tour, and it was peace enforcement, thank goodness, not peacekeeping. Big difference. Chapter 6 and Chapter 7, big difference. So we had to use force, we did.
Any times that stand out for you where you did have to go guns hot?
Yes. So a couple of times we had to shoot tires out on vehicles moving special police and derelicts up to cause riots and or overthrow mayors and different things that they were doing. See, the Dayton Accords covered the military, but they didn't cover the special police very well. So that gap is where they did all their black marketing, all their abuse to other factions, whether it be Croatians or Muslims. In that sector, most of the special police was Muslims and Serbs. The Birchko riots happened then. That was a very bad time. That one, we had, I remember Apache hit by fire. I remember one of our outposts by the bridge there was almost overrun. I had a company commander give him an order, a fire if he had to. We did fire on some windows where snipers were in the buildings. We had to seize a lot of equipment, search stuff. A couple of things that we did that I don't want to get into for the public.
Yeah.
But one thing I found out was invaluable is that they had special forces out over there working some of their teams on some of the missions that they had. And I knew some of the guys obviously very well. So I incorporated them quite a bit of my operations in my sector, which helped us prep certain areas we're going to do things. But, we'd have things where they would have a riot and they would, with Molotov cocktails, catch mechanized vehicles on fire, and you'd tell your partner country, I won't mention the country, you can't fire. That is a threat of death. You can, by rules of engagement, you can engage. They wouldn't do certain things, so they'd have to use an American unit to run tanks over cars or whatever we had to do to suppress the riots because they were using deadly force. During the Big Red one time, I had, remember, the hostages taken up in Macedonia. I had three cavalry troops taken hostage on patrol. So that took some time getting them back. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't.
I don't either. No.
Yeah. So what happened is, it's kind of an interesting thing. There's different maps. We were working off 3 different kind of maps. The borders aren't all the same. It's just who made the maps and who honors what. But it was a very interesting time there. That's after Bosnia. That's during Kosovo.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the sector down there. And that's when we went from Blue Helmet, that was a peacekeeping, not peace enforcement, to a peace enforcement. So you went from Blue Helmet to Kevlar. Now, we didn't have all the equipment they needed to work, peace enforcement. So we had to move some stuff down there quickly. But anyway, we had a cavalry patrol, vehicle patrol. They were ambushed. 3 guys were taken hostage. And it took a while to get them back. Jesse Jackson, believe it or not, was the one that went to Belgrade, Serbia, to argue about getting the guys released. We met them in Croatia, and they got out. But that could have went bad. Very interesting tour in regards to walking, but you spend a lot of time going down once a month walking a patrol with each squad on the border. They had a tough go at it. It's one of those situations where you got to tell your guys, look, we got a lot of rules of engagement. You have to honor them. There's no war crimes here. You don't, watch civilians. You got to really be careful. You do what you have to do. But I said, if you're in a bind and you got to make a decision as a corporal, you got to take care of the guy on your right and your left. You make the decision and execute, and I'll back you up. I mean, because people are put in some really tough situations like that. You guys know that.
Definitely.
It's not easy. That's the only thing you can really do, because in a second or two, decisions have to be made of life or death, and you can't pull out a card and read 13 rules of engagement. If you recall, during that time, we had Pristina Airfield, where the Russians came out of Bosnia, came down and took the airfield. They wouldn't let the Brits or anybody else in there. I don't know if you remember that.
There's a big standoff. I remember. I do remember that part.
Yeah, big standoff. And some other stories I'd love to tell you, but I really can't. But one thing that I can tell you is that we were ordered to do something about the Russians in Pristina. There's a lot of talk about a big fight and all that. We ended up taking one Black Hawk, flew up, landed, got surrounded, and everybody thought we were crazy, but I actually had a plan, because I knew the commander that was on the ground for my intel guys that I worked with in Bosnia. Because I had that, I commanded 3,000 Russians in Bosnia, 3,000 Russian paratroopers. And those were the guys that took Pristina Airfield. And because of that relationship, not because I was tough, just that relationship, we were able to make a deal with them after a couple shots of vodka and some slices of fat. The typical Russian way they drink. Made a deal that the Brits, the Germans, Italians, Americans could use that airfield. They could be in charge of it. They could even have their flag higher on their terminal than we do. But you got to make a deal with these guys because we're both superpowers, and you got to behave like one. And by the way, your battalion commander that's down here in Kosovo with the force gave the Germans and the Italians a lot of crap about following orders. I understand day after tomorrow you're going to go to see our American commander. And when you see that American commander, you better salute, and you better do whatever he tells you to do, because you're working for the Americans. And we're both the superpowers. And I'll make sure you have wood for your stoves, and if you need food and water and all that, oil, whatever you need, I'll take care of it. But don't screw around with the American commander. Do what he tells you. And we got it solved. But, it wouldn't have happened, I don't think, if we didn't have that relationship where they worked for us in Bosnia. Because we established, we parachuted, even though I was in a leg unit, we parachuted together, stuff like that. I don't know if you ever used a Russian parachute. I wouldn't recommend it.
I have not.
No.
Yeah. Anyway.
So tell us about kind of the run up to your retirement. And it sounds like you've stayed quite busy after your military career.
Yeah. So I got out of my own accord. I didn't have to get out. It was a tough decision for me. I spent a whole night with my dad talking about it, because he was, my main mentor.
Sure.
All those years he was in, 42 years. But I had young kids. Most of my peers, their kids are in college or off, whatever, doing civilian work or in the military themselves. My kids were in grade school. So, and they wanted to send me also, that's one reason. The other is they wanted to send me back to the Pentagon. I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to go to Fort Benning or something and train lieutenants and sergeants and stuff like that. I was probably spoiled, I gotta admit it. And I just thought it was the right time to leave. And I did. It was not an easy decision, but that's why I did it. I don't regret it, except for 9/11. And when 9/11 happened, in my mind, I thought I should be leading some kind of an attack on Baghdad. I felt that, maybe I didn't make the right decision. But what if I was in the Pentagon and couldn't go in the field? That'd be even more miserable.
True.
So it was probably a good decision.
It's an incredible career from 1968 or 69 to about 2000. Is that in the ballpark?
Yeah, I actually went to the 82nd in 70, like January 70 and then retired in beginning of 2000.
Mm-hmm. Yep, with conventional infantry, special forces, airborne, Ranger, Delta, back to conventional infantry. It's incredible. Tell us what you've been up to since retirement. You've mentioned training. You've mentioned going and working with the Kurds, working with the Ukrainians. What's keeping you busy since retirement?
Well, actually, I ran the McCormick Foundation Chicago for 9 years, and that was a great transition from the Army, because a lot of people say, how can you be a philanthropist when you used to run around the military killing people? Well, as you know, in the military, you don't kill that many people. 90% of your time you're protecting people. You're doing that type of work. You're not killing people. And you're doing something for humanity, which is what a philanthropist does in a nonprofit, in a charity, or whatever the case may be, whatever you want to call it. So that was a good transition. And then I was on several boards, and I went and ran a big medical company, 11,000 people, a clinical research organization here in Wilmington, North Carolina. That was for the for-profit. So I went from government to nonprofit to for-profit. Then I ran two other medical companies after that. Then I started my Osprey Global Solutions Company, which does training in remote area logistics and medical work. I bring together tier one, mostly some tier two operatives, and we do things around the world. And also at a training facility outside of Wilmington, North Carolina, about an hour south of Fort Bragg. So the first, we did three major missions. We did a lot of small ones, but the one major one was ISIS coming in Iraq. 2016 and 17, off and on, I went to Kurdistan and worked with the Peshmerga on some advice, but mostly in medical training. We brought supplies over plus medical training because they didn't have anything. But remember, they're the only guys that held the line. So I loved them. And so we did that, and then we went to help the displaced Christians from north of Mosul. And a couple of the churches there, they were destroyed inside. We brought over bells, church bells, big 300-pound bells. Wow. And so on. So one of the most memorable accounts I had was in 2017 on Easter. We had mounted two bells and one church about 800 years old. The other one, gosh, it was older than that.
Yeah. Some
say 1100, I don't know, but it was old. And on Easter, all those families came back to church in that village. Every home was destroyed, but they went to church just outside of Mosul, North Mosul. And they rang those bells, and I know the ISIS could hear it, which was like, one of those things. Mm-hmm. And because the Peshmerga reoccupied the area, they kept advancing, just like the guys in the South with American advisors did. And so that was a good experience. And then after the airlift happened in Afghanistan, evacuating people, we were a little bit involved in that. But where it really got hard, we continued to work for 2 years on the ground evacuating HVTs, these high-value targets of ISIS, Taliban, Al-Qaeda, or Haqqani network. That was hard. You can imagine from your backgrounds, the network required to evacuate people by ground out of country into other countries that are not so friendly either, right? Tajikistan, Pakistan, and Iran. And move and hide others that stayed in country continuously for 2 years.
It sounds almost like a non-assisted recovery route, like you're getting downed-air fighter pilots back to friendly lines almost.
Yeah, it is. And luckily, they had a couple Underground Railroad type things for Christians in the old days. And then there's some other means, but I don't want to get into it because that's still going on. But we never lost anybody. It's not just getting a principal out. You got to get the wife, and usually, the average is 4 kids per family. Mm-hmm. So there's 6 packs right there you got to get out. Mm-hmm. And you're going through several different areas of control of bad guys and people ratting on each other. We even did one by small air and ground together out of country. That was very tough. I didn't think it would work, but it did. And it's because of the assets were so good. So that was, and then Ukraine started. So when the invasion happened in February 22, we were doing both. We were helping evacuate people out of the front lines in Ukraine, orphanages, elderly, and disabled, to Western Ukraine or Romania, Slovakia, Poland, whatever. And then it transitioned into, over the last several years, so now we've been operating about 3.5 years over there, to trauma training, TCCC, medical training, mm-hmm. and specialized EOD. Mm-hmm. Not conventional wheat fields, sunflower fields like that, big thousands of hectares, but villages that change control by Russians and Ukrainians, where Wagner Group or Chechnyans or other bad guys, would put insidious booby traps, IEDs, whatever you want to call them, in soccer balls, dolls, refrigerators, baby cribs, terrible things to terrorize the locals, helping their EOD on those type of IEDs. So that's been very rewarding, and we're supposed to go back over here pretty soon again for the 13th time.
So, I'd love to ask you the question, Dave, sort of what I asked you about your LRRP experience in Vietnam, but now older, wiser, a lot of experience in the government, out of the government, the nonprofit space, the commercial space. Any big reflections, big takeaways that you'd like to share with people?
A couple. So just like it's hard to do a mission unless it's a very specific, like a hostage rescue, as an example. But even those, it's hard to do any kind of a military. I'd start there. Military mission, unless it's joint, especially today, and it's a mix of heavy, light, and soft, or air, ground, and sea. It's some kind of combination. And if you have experience in those, you can understand it and do it better. Just like I told you about the aviation and ground, that experience helped me out a lot. Border ops, the SEALs and Delta Rangers, they're working together. That helps you out a lot. And the tank, sometimes you want a sniper at a point, checkpoint, overwatching it. Sometimes you want an M1 tank. Depends what you want to accomplish. Kinetic, non-kinetic, whatever. So that mix really helped me out in the military. And I look at the civilian life the same way. The experience in the government, experience working in the nonprofit sector. Nonprofits are all over the world. These international organizations are everywhere. You're going to bump into them. You know that when you're doing government ops. And then the for-profit, understanding the economic requirements. So when you go to war college, as an example, they teach in doctrine the acronym DIME, D-I-M-E. I think it's changed a little bit, but just use that. Diplomacy, information with / intel, military, and economics. We don't always follow that doctrine. I don't think we did in the last administration. But if you don't combine that all the time, you're at a disadvantage. So as an example, in the United States of America, I look at the CONUS here in the United States as a rear area of operations. Then you look at the close fight, you look at the deep fight. Just like Ukraine has got the close fight with the trench line, the deep fight, the blowing up strategic bombers, the blowing up bridges, the Black Sea Fleet, whatever. And their rear areas, of course, their homeland, was not occupied, and protecting that with first responders and everything else from the airstrikes, Shahed missiles, etc. In the United States, we have actually the same problem. First, we had the open border. So now we got sleeper cells, in the United States, stuff that you probably wouldn't have. You're going to always have some, but not like we have now. But what is the biggest vulnerability on a war machine if we go to war with China or Russia? Or the American people, just way of life. And that is, first, medical, with the amount of drugs that are made overseas and controlled by China and some other places, and rare earth minerals and rare earth elements. The magnesium, the graphite, the nickel, the copper, the germanium, Ilium, all the stuff that's for night vision goggles, that's for X-ray machines and CAT scans in hospitals, the stuff for the F-35 fighter, your cell phone, your computer, the batteries and whatever. We are on our ass on that. For the last 4 decades, China's monopolized that. Now, having been assistant division commander for support, without certain things, you can't run tanks and APCs and helicopters and all that. Well, it's the same thing in the industrial military base in the United States. You cannot do it without access to these raw materials. There's been 6 presidential directives put out on this subject I'm talking about, and we're just now trying to get our stuff together.
Mm-hmm.
So the United States of America is in a tough position right now. You know, China just cut off, I think, 7 rare earth elements. They don't have to fire a missile, they just pull the lever. You think COVID was bad on what happened to the general public? I mean, if you had something like this go with the medicine supplies, it'd be like 5x.
Yep.
And, you know, the industrial base to make all these drones and Patriot missiles and all the things that we have to do, you cannot do it without raw materials. So we're playing catch up right now on secure supply lines. It's a big deal. So in the civilian, I'm working on some of these projects in DC and with other companies on this matter. And I didn't realize, I've been doing it for about 3 years, 3 years ago, just how serious it is. Now, luckily, President Trump's doing something about it. But you just can't dig a mine and build a processing plant and all that overnight. So it goes back to readiness, no difference than the Army. It's readiness. Country has to be ready, just like the military has to be ready. So this is a big deal, and I'm trying to contribute where I can, and American people have to be aware of it.
Dave, is there anything else I failed to ask? Anything else that you'd like to mention before we wrap up tonight?
No, I think that, you know, a show like yours and the others is just another way to get some awareness out, its opinions. You know, not everybody's going to agree with what I say, that some will agree. But it's good to share this, and I appreciate what you guys do, and I think that it's really important. And I appreciate, you know, the opportunity to be on with you.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. We really appreciate your time and spending your evening with us. It's been a great, widely all-encompassing interview here as we went through as much of it as we could. Tell folks out there where they can find you if they're interested in working with Osprey Global Solutions or some of your other endeavors. Where can folks go to find you?
Yeah, so there's a website, Osprey Global Solutions. They just go to that website, and it talks about some of the stuff, contact numbers and that. And again, you know, we operate in our training site. We do a lot of R&D there, drones, robots, tied into satellites, armament, a lot of medical training, live tissue training, things like that units do that makes a difference, that a lot of civilian, we rehearse everything here before we go overseas, just like you would in a Ranger Regiment. You know, rehearse, and then we go. And it's 95% veterans.
So we'll have some links down in the description of this podcast that you guys can go and check out. Anything, Dave?
No. Thank you so much for your time tonight. We really appreciate it.
Hey, appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Feel free to stay in touch, and everyone else, we will see you guys next time. Thanks for joining us tonight. Hey guys, I want to tell all of you today about a new newsletter that we're launching that encompasses both the Team House podcast, the Eyes On podcast, and the High Side news outlet, which I run with Sean Naylor. The newsletter is going to be once a week. It's going to come into your inbox, and you're going to get the most current podcasts on Eyes On and the Team House and whatever's topical or current on the high side. So it's another way for us to get the information out to you, as social media algorithms are pretty iffy and you never really know what you're going to get. So this is a once a week email. It'll slide into your inbox and it will have, you know, the greatest hits of that week.
It's really good, man. I'm checking it out.
The website for it is teamhousepodcast.kit.com/join. teamhousepodcast.kit.com/join. You go there and you enter into your email list, or you enter your email into the little thing on the website, and you're good to go. And that'll be it. So we really appreciate your support and hope you'll consider signing up.
Where's the link?
The link will also be down in the description if you're looking for it there.
And that's teamhousepodcast.kit, KIT, Kilo India Tango.com /join.